Pro boxing fans, we are here in Riyadh. It's another big fight week. With me, my good old friend Teddy Atlas. Teddy, how are you? It's very intense. You must be jet lagged still, I think.
Yeah, we flew in. You know, it's the normal thing over here, right? It's the same routine. We flew in from. We left Tuesday morning from New York. If you want to know our journey. We leave Tuesday morning at 10:30, and we arrive at about 10:30 Wednesday morning in Riyadh. So you know, who knew back in the day? Think about this, Uri, when they made these sci-fi movies about space travel, which we said, oh, that's crazy, right? Time machines. Actually, it's true. You could travel forward a whole day, right? So it's true. And then if you go to another part of the world, you can actually go back in time and save a day. I got to go back a lot of days, though, to save a whole bunch, to try to catch up to you and be young and spritey like you. But listen, one thing that is consistent with coming over here, two things. One, it's a long trip, but it's a good trip. Because you're coming to see good people like you and the people that host this. They couldn't treat you better. And you know what? How blessed are you when you're going to a place where you're able to be a part of something that's been 50 years of your life that you've worked at in boxing, and you can do it with good people. And you can do it where people actually are gracious enough to want you to be there, kind enough to say, hey, we'd like you to be there. That's a real blessing, and so and you can bring your son with you, which I have my son come with me. That's a real just a blessing, as I said earlier. And now here we are. We're here, for the rematch. I mean, the first one was epic. I don't use that word lightly. It shouldn't be used. It's epic. It shouldn't be used lightly. It was epic. It was fitting of a historic moment where the heavyweight title had not been undisputed, had not been put together for one night to have one champion in 25 years. And it turned out to be a classic fight, a kind of fight that, again, is fitting of that kind of history, that kind of moment. And because it was, we're here again, to have a rematch. It spoke to a rematch. It demanded a rematch in that kind of way. So here we are. Fire away, because do your thing.
Let's go back to May, and I want your sort of thoughts on where you felt. And it was a very close fight. When I was watching it, Tyson looked absolutely phenomenal in there at times. Usyk seems to come back and hurt him, and there was peaks and troughs in that fight for both fighters. I want to ask you for Tyson, where do you believe it might have gone a little bit wrong for him in that first fight?
Right from the first round, and here it is. No one else saying this, and it doesn't mean I'm right. But my experience in this business is that it's about the seen and the unseen. And what I mean by that is, from the first round on, for the first 6 rounds, let's say, my memory's not 100%, having not seen the fight since, but I remembered where Fury was carrying the rhythm of the fight to a certain extent, the first 6 rounds, where I think he would have been ahead on the scorecards. And again, I didn't go and revisit the scorecards. I'm just going by memory that it seemed to get into a flow, a rhythm of the fight where he was jabbing, he was using the ring, he was boxing, he was picking spots, and the other guy was pursuing, the other guy being, of course, the great Usyk. And they're both great. But what I mean by the unseen is you might have been seeing the jab and the rounds and the rhythm that were being put away for Fury, but you weren't seeing what the pressure, what the plan was with Usyk. from the first bell to the last, he was putting pressure on. He was putting pressure on. You know what he was doing? And this is what I mean by unseen. You ever watch a pot of water on a stove under a flame? Well, you're watching it, right? And you don't see what's happening. You just see the flame, you see the water, and then at a certain point it starts boiling. And then at a certain point there's no more water. And people say, wow, where'd the water go? Well, it went away from the flame. It's called evaporation. Well, flames come in different forms. The form of the flame, in this case, happened to be the pressure being put on by a brilliant guy who does one thing better than most, that he's always done. He wins. He knows how to win. And that was his plan. Tyson's plan was to box, to move. The other guy's plan, again, Usyk's plan, was I'm going to put pressure. And that pressure's going to pay off for me. It's going to boil the water. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a while for the water to disappear, but the water will disappear. I believe it will. And he kept putting the pressure, and again, he may have been losing some, I don't remember exactly, but he may have been, in the minds of people, not in control. Even though he was pressing a fight, and we think of a guy being in control that way, the other guy's boxing, the other guy, as I said, is in a certain rhythm. He's jabbing, he's scoring rounds, I guess, to a certain extent. Again, I don't remember the scorecards early on. I just felt like it was Fury's fight early. But another analogy, when you put money in the bank, you put it in CDs. You don't right away. You don't get anything, but you start to get interest later on. It takes time, though. You got to leave the money in there. And it takes time, and then after a while you get interest on that money. Well, the interest of putting pressure, going to the body, pressing a guy, the interest shows up late. It shows up late. Again, the water takes a while to boil, and I think that's what happened. I think that in a round that everything went south for Fury. What was that, the ninth round? Ninth to 10th, ninth round, where he didn't suddenly just catch him. I remember seeing some people in my podcast, they made comments after I broke the fight down. They were saying, oh, he got gassed. Why did he get gassed? You guys don't understand. Why did he get gassed? Because he didn't go to a fueling station? What? He didn't go and get premium? What? You just throw away these terms. You throw them all over the place. People, oh, he got gassed. But why? He didn't just get gassed. He got drained. And it was a brilliant plan. It wasn't an accident. It was the idea of Usyk and his team that if we put pressure on this big man, we can wear him down, and it will pay dividends. The same way as a CD does with your money. It will pay us dividends late. So late, he got him up against the ropes. He was a little gassed, if you want to use that term. He was like, yeah, from all that pressure, and he finally got to him. And he finally got to where he was planning on getting to all along. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't just a mistake. It was planned. It was purposeful. So for me, that now the question here for me is, what will be the strategies this time? Will it be the same? Because Usyk has, and so does Fury. They're dimensional enough to have options. They have options. See, Usyk can press again, but he could also box and counterpunch. Now, let's say Tyson decides to press this time. A lot of people have thrown that out there. Oh, he's got to back him up. I like to ask those guys, how many fighters have you trained, bud? I'm just curious. How many have you been doing this long? I'm just curious. Have you made a living in this business for a while? I'd just like to know. Oh, he should just go back him up. Really? Okay. But there is that frame of thought that some people say, oh, he's got to back him up this time. Can't let him press him. He's got to back him up. Okay, that's an option. There's other options too. There's an option where, for me, as a trainer, maybe you still control the outside, still use that wingspan, that height, that reach, fight tall. But this time you're more set. You grab the ground a little more, and you control the outside, keep him on the outside, and make him earn his way in. Don't be moving so much where it's a little easier to get in because you're not set sometimes for really to throw meaningful punches. You're more set. You control the outside. You use that jab, pow, pow. And then you take little steps off and you maintain that range, but always set to counter in between, to punch, to not let them make ground on you. In other words, like I would say when I was doing the commentary, to make a guy go through a bad neighborhood and mug him on the way in. You look. Now, to me, that's an option. That would be an option. Now, what are the options for Usyk? Well, if he does decide to, let's say, come forward and press him, because that's another option. Maybe he'll back him up behind the jab and use his girth in that kind of way to back him up and try to wear him down and not let him be the boss. Well, if he does that, what does Usyk do? What does he do? He does what he's done many times. He boxes. He counters. He makes him miss. He makes him pay. He pot shots. He uses his legs. He keeps him off balance. So it makes for an intriguing fight that you have, but Teddy, what if he does what you said? What if he stands his ground? That sounds pretty good, Ted. Oh, thanks. Where he stands his ground and he doesn't let him walk in. So what do you do then? Oh, maybe you knock on the front door, you come in the side door. Maybe you use feints and you make him make that step too soon, and then you use your own jab, to take away his jab. Again, maybe you come in the side doors on him. So there's a lot of possibilities in this fight. At the end of the day, I think it comes down to one thing. If you're gonna put a gun to my head and say, Teddy, at the end of the day, all those possible theories are good. What's it gonna come down to? I think it's gonna come down to, and again, I don't think anyone else touched on this, but whatever. I think it comes down, at this point in their lives, they're not young, they're getting older, they're getting a little longer in the tooth, they've been around, they've been in a lot of fights, they've been around a lot of life. I think it comes down to who left more in the ring in their first fight. You know what I think it comes down to, Uni? I think it comes down to an analogy that I think a perfect metaphor and example. The thrill in Manila. Wow. That great fight between two great fighters. I mean, you got two great fighters here, two great examples of what boxing's about in different ways of overcoming. Usyk overcoming, his country is in the middle of a war, and here he is fighting and giving hope to his people. Fury is a guy who went into a downward spiral in life with drugs and alcohol, very honest about it, and suicidal thoughts, and he's come back. He's been an example to people who have been down. Get up. Don't quit on yourself. There's always chance, as long as you don't quit. I mean, both of them just tremendous. And you had Ali and Frazier in that thrill in Manila, and they were at older points in their career, like these two guys, and they left a lot in the ring. They were never the same. They left a lot in the ring. I look at that last fight. Both guys at this point in their stages in their careers, Uni, they left a lot in the ring. Nobody's really think about that. You always leave something in the ring, but when you're younger, you overcome it. You overcome it, you regenerate real quick. When you get older, you don't as much. For me, you know what it really comes down to? Who left more in the ring the last time? So therefore, who will have more going into the ring this time? And for me, you want my answer now? For me, I think Fury left more in the ring. And for me, and I love them both. I love them both. And I think I made that clear. I have admiration for both of them. And I'm not choosing out of favoritism. I'm choosing out of this and my experience. I think Usyk wins because of that. I think it'll be another fabulous fight. Because at the end of the day, you know why the thrill in Manila was so great? Those guys were diminished. They weren't the same fighters. Frazier, the great fighter, the great Joe Frazier, Smoking Joe Frazier, the great Muhammad, the greatest of all time. They weren't the same fighters, but inside they had the character still. See, they didn't have the physical talents and attributes that they had when they were younger, but they still had that grit. They still had that fire. They still had that pride. They still had that character. And as long as they had that, they were never, no matter what their bodies said, they were never gonna capitulate. They were never gonna say enough. And so that's why it was such a great war. They were easier to hit, unfortunately. They hit each other. It became just a tremendous fight, a tremendous, match of drama. But the real thing was their pride, their character, their intestinal fortitudes was still what they were always going to be. Two champions, two special men that did not want to give an inch, that would rather truly. People say this and, they don't really mean it, and they but you hear it all the time. But they would truly die before they would lose themselves, lose their dignity, give in. And that's what made for it so great. And these two men have that. They have that kind of pride. Even though they've made a lot of money and incredible money and everything, and they deserve it. Anyone who gets in that ring, to me, they can't make enough money because of what I said earlier. Because you leave that ring with less of yourself. It's just a matter of how much less. So they deserve whatever they can make. But at the end of the day, that pride, that character, that will make for a great fight. No matter where their skills are at this point, no matter how diminished they may have been. And they've been diminished to a certain point. We don't know until we know. And we see it that night. But what they are as two men, that will guarantee a tremendous contest. Again, at the end of the day, I'm picking Fury. I'm picking Usyk, I'm sorry. I'm picking Usyk to beat Fury. And the other thing that I would add to it is that, and I said this before the first fight when I picked Usyk to win, that his one attribute, you can point out a lot of things for Usyk. You really can. He's got good hand speed for heavyweight. He moved up from smaller weight, obviously. He's got good feet, good, mobility. He can fight in the trenches. He can also fight at a distance. He can set traps. He can counter. He's got obviously a good mind, very cerebral in the ring. All of those things. And you can say the same thing for Fury. He's got a good mind. He's got all the heart. They both do. They've proven themselves. They've been fire tested. Again, Fury has shown it. He can box. He can go get it. He can push it back. He can do all those things. But for me, the greatest trait that Usyk has, is his ability to win. That's why I picked him the first time. His ability to win, his way, just to find a way to win. And I believe he'll do it again. He'll find a way to win. Hold on, one guys, just keep it low because.
Can I ask you, because you're a trainer, Fury's actually come out and said, he's talked to Sky Sports and said, maybe in that first fight, I should have taken that 10 million fine and delayed the fight because of that cut. There was issues with sparring, you maybe never got as much sparring. How much is preparation key, and how much do you feel like it affected Fury in that first fight?
That's a proper question, and a fair question, and not an excuse. See, that's the thing about Fury. These guys, they don't make excuses. If they say something, it's kind of like that commercial, E.F. Hutton. If they say something, I'm going to listen. Remember that old commercial with E.F. Hutton, the financial advisor? If E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen. In this business, I don't listen too often because I hate to tell you, there's a lot of people that speak that don't know what they are speaking about, unfortunately. and because we're open to the world. Like, come on in. Where in other businesses, you actually have to have done something and had some kind of background in that business before you can come on it. But not in our business. And people just, they, to a certain extent, they just come in, even as trainers sometimes. And it's like, what were you doing before? Oh, I cooked a couple meals, and I made a few omelets and did a few. Yeah, but what have you done as far as having the right to be leading somebody in a very dangerous, a very difficult sport, game, business? What have you done, to have that kind of responsibility? Because if you do it wrong, there's consequences, real consequences to the guy that you're teaching or supposedly teaching or leading. So, having said that, like I said, these guys, I listen to them when they say something because it's usually legitimate. And yeah, he's got a legitimate thing to say that, the camp may have been rushed because of that cut and because of the timeline and because of the pressure on him not to take that fine and, to make the timeline and to keep his word and keep his commitment. And yeah, you have to appreciate that. You have to understand that, yeah, that could be legitimate. At the end of the day, I'm sticking to my guns because at the end of the day, all the things I just said, they still stand. They still stand for me. In other words, all the things, who left more in the ring? They're still up in age. Usyk still knows how to win. And Fury too. Fury always did. But Usyk, you're talking about a guy who won the gold medal in the Olympics. You're talking about a guy who went and won the cruiserweight title, consolidated all of the cruiserweight titles, and then does what Holyfield did, the great Holyfield. He steps up to heavyweight. It's a small heavyweight, and he beats a big heavyweight in his home country to win the heavyweight down, and a fellow gold medalist in his home country, and doesn't beat him once, beats him twice. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And then if you kind of look at the resume now, he's beaten all the heavyweight champs. Dubois, who I love, what he's done. Well, you talk about another great story, about overcoming all of that, about redemption. You're talking about Dubois. Just great story. But he has beaten all the guys. And again, there's one thing that has been a constant in his life, in his travels, in his success. He wins. He finds a way to win. He was losing that fight. Again, I don't have the scorecards but he was losing that fight. But fear not. I will find a way to win. I'll be using for a moment and just say, I get a kick out of him. I love him. I get a kick. They go, I find a way. Yes, I must. I go here, I go there, but I go to find way. Thank you. You gotta love them. You gotta love both guys. You really do. They're good for the sport in different ways. But they represent what the sport's all about. In one way, it's about overcoming. And you have to be also. Listen, don't forget the other factor. You have to be grateful for the man over here named Turki Al-Sheikh, who has made it possible for us to have these fights that we wouldn't have had otherwise. To unify the title for the first time in 25 years, and then again to have this rematch again. It's a good time for boxing right now. It's a healthy time for boxing, for the sport, for the fans.
Yeah, just want to reiterate that we would have probably not got to see these fights if not for Turki Al-Sheikh and Riyadh season. Teddy, always a pleasure seeing you, always good seeing you. I know it's a busy day for you. You've got the gala dinner later on with the Ring magazine announcement, and Yeah, good times in Riyadh, and then the big fight on Saturday night. Thank you so much for your time. I will be speaking to you after the fight, hopefully, get your thoughts on the outcome. But once again, Terry Atlas, you're a star, mate. Thank you very much.